Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today on Masechtas Sanhedrin daf Chaf. We are going to begin on daf Chaf Amud Aleph, the second line from the top. Rabbi Yochanan, my nechsiv. What does the following pasuk mean when it says in Mishlei, Rabbi's bonus osachayil v'yatalis al kulana? Does that sound familiar to you? It's Eishes Chayil, right? So there are many women, many daughters did so much, but you've surpassed them all. So Rabbi's bonus osachayil ze Yosef. That's referring to Yosef. Uboyas. It's also referring to Boaz as well, because they were very great in their passing of the Nisayon. But you're above all of them, Zipalti ben Loyish. As we said that even in yesterday's daf, that even though Palti ben Loyish was supposedly married to Michal, and therefore he had maybe a certain right to be able to be intimate with her because the king said it was okay. But the reality was he couldn't be married to her because Michal was really married to David. And therefore, because of that, it shows his greatness, that he was above them. Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachman, Rabbi Yonasan, Meinich Siv. What does it mean also in Eishes Chayil? Sheker Achin v'Hevel Yoifi. That Chain is falsehood and Hevel is beauty. So Sheker Chain say Yosef, because again he was beautiful, but it was Sheker. The Hevel HaYoifi is a Boyaz. Hevel is Yoifi is referring to Boyaz. Yiras Hashem Hitisal is about Ben Layish. So again, we darshan from these words that this is again referring to the godless of being able to withstand such temptations. This is referring to the generation of Moshe. What does that mean? Says Rashi, they learned a lot of Torah. However, the generation of Chizkiyahu, they learned even more than them, as it's cited in the 10th parak in Sefer Yeshaya. Yiras Hashem Hitasalu Zedar Shel Chizkiya. Davar Acher. Sheker Achein Zedar Shel Moshe v'Yeshua v'Hevel Yoifi Zedar Shel Chizkiya. Yiras Hashem Hitasalu Zedar Shel Rabbi Yehuda b'Rabbi Eloi. Regarding the great generation of Yehuda b'Rabbi Eloi. Amr Allah al Rabbi Yehuda b'Rabbi Eloi. Shahayu Shisha Talmidim. Mischasin b'talos achas v'oiskin b'tayra. They had even 6 talmidim that would cover themselves up with a talis, and they would be able to still learn Torah in that way. So why is that such a great thing? Again, it shows that they were able to learn Torah even though they were freezing cold. They had numerous nisyonos. That certainly is greater than the other generations in which they didn't have such tests. Okay. Says the next Mishnah. Says Masnisa. Mesel mes. So let's say the king's relative died. Enu yoitzim a pesach platerin shaloi. He's not supposed to leave his own palace. Rabbi Yehuda im ratzel latzes achar hamita yoitza. If he wants to escort the mace after and go in that fashion, he may do so. It says Rashi Lefnehamita Yoitzis Shekem Etzina B'David Sheyoitza Achemitaso Shel Avner. As we're going to see in a second in the Mishnah, that David, who was the king, did this. Shekem Etzina B'David Sheyoitza Achemitaso Shel Avner. So if David, who is the paradigm of a great king, so therefore we should be able to also all kings to do so. Shnemar V'Melch David Hoich Acharmita Amalei Loya Hadavar Elafayis Es Ha'am. This was only done in order to appease the nation, and we'll discuss what exactly that means. But that's basically what David did with regard to Avner was not a raya. And when it comes to the Sudas Havra, that we said that it's not supposed to be prepared by the person but by someone else, so the entire nation should be lying on the ground, and he should be Mesav al Dargash, and he should recline on a Dargash. What exactly is a Dargash? The Gemara is going to go into that, which is also brought down Moed Katan, Tanrabanan. In a place where the women go after the casket, that's okay. If they are accustomed to go in front of the meat, that's also fine. They should actually always go in front of the casket. Because David went behind the casket shel Avner. So David would obviously not mingle with women. So it must be that if David was in the back, so it must be that the women were in the front. This action of David was only to appease the people. He appeased them because David went among the men, but nichnas l'bein hanashim and entered among the women. V'yatzim l'bein hanashim and nichnas l'bein hanashim. Shenemar v'yodu kol the entire nation knew b'chol Yisrael ki lo haisa mahamelech l'hamis es Avner. So basically, it was to let people know David wasn't responsible for Avner's death. And that's the reason why he came. So whatever David did is not a riot to all other kings. It was just because there were some people that suspected that he did so in order, he may have actually been responsible for Avner's death. Darish Rava Ma'idach, what does it mean when it says in the Pasuk, also in Shmuel Beis, Yavakol Lahavrai, says David. So they all went to make a meal for David. So Ksiv Lahachrais, it sounds like to cut him down. So initially they're going to cut him down, and then afterwards it was and afterwards they provided a meal. So initially they felt that David killed Avner, and therefore they wanted to protest. But afterwards, the fact that he was part of everything and he was part of the procession, so therefore they changed their minds. Okay, so why was Avner killed? What happened? Because he should have protested against Shaul when it came to the killing of Nov, which was a city of Kohanim, Novir Kohanim. There was a multitude of Kohanim that were killed. And Shaul said the reason why they should be killed is because they were helping David, and therefore he killed them. Now the truth is that Avner had the ability to speak up and he didn't. Therefore he's held accountable for this bloodshed. He did actually make a mecha, but Shaul didn't answer. It says hamelech el Avner v'yomer. So the king lamented over the death of Avner, and he said, Chachmos nabu yomos Avner, yadecha lo asurais. So comparable like the worthlessness of his death, your hands lo asuros were not tied, v'raglecha lo lanachshtayim hurgshu, and your feet were not placed in chains. So mandir milo micha hachikarma. This is what he was saying. Yadecha lo asurais, that your hands were not tied, and your feet were not placed in chains, which means you should have protested. You had the ability to protest. You weren't held forcefully to not be able to say anything. You could have said something. So he was actually alluding to the fact that Avner was actually responsible to speak up, and he didn't. So my time lo michias. So why didn't he protest? That he fell in front of the Bnei Avla, those who are engaged in iniquity. That actually he did protest, but Shaul didn't respond. We say is Samuyi Masma. He's actually posing it like a question. Chachmas Nabu Yomos Yodechelu Asuros. Is it not that his hands were not tied? Raglecha Lo Nachshtim. Basically, he wasn't allowed to do anything. Says Rashi, Yadecha lo asuros, Adam chashiv hayisa l'shoil. You were such a very important person to Shaul. Limchais. And according to the first shot, you should have protested. You had the ability to protest. Ulofi shlo machis. And since you didn't protest, that's why it says kinfay lifnei b'nei avla naflas. Okay. So again, it's a machlokus whether or not he did protest or he didn't protest. Avner did or did not. Okay, fine. So Omandi Omer Michvo Nene. Okay, fine. So Mechdi. Mechuyi Machis. So let's say he did protest. So my time on Kinful if Nebene my time Kinful if Nebene Avla Nefelas. Omandi Omer Micha my time Yanish. So understand, if he actually did protest, so what did he do wrong? So second answer, Rav Nachman, Rav Yitzchak Shitsham Malchus Beis David Shtei Shanim Memechsa, that he delayed the Malchus Beis David from ruling as the king for 2.5 years. Says Rashi, Shehimides Ishboshes Lomelech, because Avner had Ishboshes as a king for 2.5 years. Imlo Himlichu Avner, if it wasn't for Avner, Hayimam Lichas David, then they would have showed allegiance to David. So Avner is the one who caused Ishboshes to rule. V'shemoylach Ishboshes ad Yom Shemach David al Kol Yisrael hayu shtei shanim v'mechsa. That was for 2.5 years. Shtei shanim Ishboshes, 2 years for Ishboshes. V'chati shana ben Misasel and Malchus David, and it was 6 months between his death and Malchus Beis David. Shemachma Shoyel Melech David b'Chevron, because of Shoyel Melech David b'Chevron. He was in Chevron for a certain amount of time, and Rashi continues to elaborate. Basically, he could have been the king for 2.5 years, and he wasn't, and therefore that's the reason why Avner was punished. Question 14, Avner. So again, either because he should have made a macha that Shul shouldn't have killed Noiv Ir HaKohanim, or he did make a macha, but because he allowed Ishboshes to be the rule for, ended up causing a 2.5 year delay in his Malchus, which is the same question as TA 29. Mipnei Nenesh Avner. So TA 29, of course, is the exact same answer. No need to repeat it. And TB 30. Finally, we got to the last question. Today is the Gemara test, the Dirshu test. And it's the exact same question. So I presume I got it right. Who shoisik b'zman sheshayel hoiregas kimoy as kama kohanim b'noiv. Who delayed Malchus Beis David 2.5 years. Okay, very good. Okay, let's keep on going then. All right, so we're done with that, with basically most of our questions. We have this and that. Okay. All right, let's keep on going. So the Mishnah says, so it says when it comes to the Suda Savra, so the king reclines in a dargash. So my dargash, so Ula, ars to the gada. It's a bed for Mazel Tov. So Rabbi Nachman Ula miika midi de adha inna Ula sivna v'hashta v'isvinin. No one sits in such a bed. So what are you talking about? So now all of a sudden he's sitting there. It's there just again for Mazel in your house, but no one actually uses it. So that can't be what it is. Maska Barava, my kusha. Dilma mida have yachil v'shtia. The ada in the loachin of ashke. He didn't eat or drink. Hashta kamachin le v'kam ashkin le. Now they give him food and to drink. So maybe things change. So to over here, things are different. Things change, and you could sit there. El ikasha hakash is mamish verbatim from Moed Cotton. This would be the question. Dargash in sarach lechvoisai. An avel doesn't need to break it down or to turn it over. El zaikvo, all you have to do is just stand it up. Why wouldn't you have to basically break it down? One who turns over their bed, it's actually 3-way machokas over there. It's not just your bed. All beds. So my cushion, maybe it's comparable to like a bed that you put kalim on it, but no one actually sleeps on it. So it's possible that, again, there are certain types of beds that are not sleeping beds, so therefore you may not need to turn it over, so that doesn't prove anything either. Now, dargash matir karbitin, so a dargash, what you do is you loosen up the straps from the loops, and then the whole thing will fall apart. That's what you're supposed to do. Karbit and Misle, there was no straps, no loops on this type of a bed. So obviously that's not what it's referring to. El Kiyas Rabin Amrli Tahu Muraban Rav Tachliva Shemei Dahavi Shchech B'Shuka de Gildoi. He knows what he's talking about because he was constantly in a marketplace, says Rashi, of Ritzanin, of people who are involved in tanning hides and things of that nature. Yermale my dargash arsadat sala, talking about a bed which is made out of leather. And Rashi says mita shel or v'toilin ritzuos b'svasa or saviv, and they have a piece of leather and they have straps which they tie around on all sides. So basically, all you need to do is you loosen up the straps, and then the leather piece in the middle falls down, and that's what it's referring to. Okay. My Dargash said it so. Rabbi Yomi, Rabbi Yochanan, Dargash, as we continue to Chaf Amid Beis. Sirugo mitoichai, it's the knots, says Rashi, kashirasai, the tyings are through the boards. You put it through the boards itself, like in between. Mita, when it comes to a bed, sirugam yal gaba, you tie over the bedposts. So basically, turn it, put it through, not through, but around it. Meisvei kliates me'amasa mekablan toma. When does a kliates potentially become toma? Tamei hamita v'harchisa. When it comes to a bed and a risa, it's mishiyishvum or hadag. It's when it's covered up with this hide. Navi mita misereges. If you want to tell me that when it comes to a bed that it goes over it, right? So mial gabal lamuli shivas or hadag. Why is it that it's the woods covered by leather? It's always covered anyway. Both of them go through, but it's threaded through the hole. Dargash bavakta. However, Dargash, it goes back and forth through loops. What to do b'shas avelos of just untying it. Bar Ami mita she nakli teha yoitzin koi zoikva v'dayu. If let's say you're dealing with long poles, just stand it up and that is sufficient. Says the next Mishnah. Says the Masnisin. When you're going out for a war, and it's Mechamas Rishus, which is, as we saw in Rashi on Daf Beis, it excludes the war of Yehoshua, conquering land. Alpi, based in Shilshav Echad, which is a direct quote from the Mishnah, 71. Uparetz lasai sloy derech, you're able to basically knock down other people's walls in order to go through. You can't protest, there's nothing you can do about it. Derech HaMelech, and when it comes to a king, there's no measurement. It could be as big as you want. You can knock down as much as you want. Now, when it comes to the collection of spoils, we say that the king is the one who gets, and he gets first. Okay. It says the Gemara, Tanina Chana Zimna. We learned already. So you can see on the side, the El Beis Amanav. We already had this in the beginning of the Mishnah, in the first parak. So why does it basically repeat itself here? So I did a ton of kol mili de melech tanenami moitzin mechamas rishos. Right. Since we're talking about the dinim of a king, so we throw this here too. Amar Yehuda Mishmol kol emir biparshas melech. Anyone who says in Parshas Melech, Rashi says b'sefer Shmuel b'nechem and osechem yikach melech mutter boy, a king is allowed in it. So basically, a king can to take out all the things that are found in the Parsha of Melech over there in Sefer Shmuel. Omer lo nemra Parsha zu. The whole reason why it was mentioned over there is ella le'im aleihem, is in order to put fear upon the people. Shnemer sum tasam lecha melech shnei maso lecha, that there should be fear placed on you. So the whole Parsha of Shmuel is only again to place that fear. However, Rashi says, "Avol enu mutar lasais." You're really not allowed to do it. Ketana. Rabbi Yossi Omer Komer b'Parshas Melech mutar bay. Anything mentioned in that parsha, the king can do. Rabbi Yehuda Omer l'nemer b'Parshas Zoh El Kanil l'Imalem, just to cause them fear. Shnemer some tol Melech Melecha Melech shnei imaso Lecha. V'chein hayu Rabbi Yehuda Omer Gimel mitzvahs savi sobach nisasal arts. There's 3 mitzvahs in which the Klal Yisrael were given when they entered Eretz Canaan. L'hamid lehem Melech, to get a king. L'achz zar shel Amalek, to wipe out Amalek. And l'nos lehem beis bechira. And taka has to be done in that order. That the whole reason why that parsha was mentioned is based on those complainers. Shnemar, as the pasuk says, the amarta simolai melech l'gaimer, and it wasn't proper that they were asking for a king there, as we'll explain. Tanya Belezer Omer Zakanim Shabadar Kahagin Shalu. Actually, the Zakanim, they properly asked for a king. Shnemar Tanol Melech L'Shaftenu. Give us a king so he'll judge over us, he'll have rules and regulations. That's okay. Avam Aretz Shemehem Kilkulu. It was Haaretz the way that they asked a question, or for the purpose, the wrong reason did they ask for a king. Shnemar Hayinu Gal Machenu Kechol HaGoyim. That's the key language. Kechol HaGoyim V'Shavtenu Malchinu V'Yatzel Fanenu. So basically, the problem was that they wanted to be just like all the other nations of the world, and the purpose of them having a king is not so that there should be laws and rules, right? On the opposite, what they just wanted was someone to be able to help them in battle. Again, as we said, have a king, and livnos lahem beis bechira to build a beis mikdash. So I don't know which one's first. Because she'omer kiyad al kes ka milcham Hashem. So b'molek havi omer lahem melech tchila. The pasuk starts talking about the throne of Hashem, which represents also a case as a kisei hakavod, is the kisei of a king. So it first talks about having a king, and then it talks about the milchama against Amalek. Then kisei el melech shnemer v'yoshem shloima al kisei Hashem melech. Okay, fine. Getting a king is number one. Then I don't know. Im livnos lahem beis mechir tchila or hachazor shel Amalek tchila. Should we destroy Amalek first, or should we build a beis mikdash? Kishu aimer. Kishuaimer v'niach lachem mikol vechem v'gaimer v'hayamakam asher yivchar Hashem v'gaimer. So haviyarmil hachuzon shalom malek tchila. First we do that. V'chem David Oimer v'hiki Yashav Hamelech David beveso, when he went to his home. V'Hashem haniachul misaviv v'ksiv v'yarmer Hamelech al Nasan hanavi. So he said to Nasan, I'm sitting among the Beis Arazim by the cedar. Okay, and some people say this is the idea of Sur Mirav Asitayv. First you have to get rid of the bad, then you can do good. So you have to first get rid of a molek, the negativity, then only you can build the Beis HaMikdash afterwards. So originally Shlomo Melech ruled over the heavens above. And then he ruled over the earth below. Shnemer kihu raida b'chol Ever hanahar meha Pesach ve'ad Aza. So Rabbi Shmuel Chanemer tivtach mitiftach ad Aza. This is also brought down in Masechtas Megillah regarding to mihoidi ve'ad Kush. So he said like this: Chadoyimer tiftach b'sayfa oilam ve'Aza b'sayfa oilam. They're on opposite sides of the world, and he was able to rule this from this side to the other. They were actually next to each other. Just like he was able to easily rule over two cities which were near each other. So the idea is Kach Malach al Kolam Kuloi. He was also able to rule over the entire world. Again, that's how the question is: Hodu and Cush right next to each other, or the opposite sides of the world with regard to Achashverosh's reign. Eventually, so he ruled over El Yonim, then the Tachtainim, then only over Klal Yisrael. Shenemar ani Koheles, which is referring to Shlomo, Chayisa Melech HaYisrael. I'm only Melech on just Klal Yisrael, the Gomer. Then it was only over Yerushalayim. Shenemar Divri Koheles ben David Melech Yerushalayim. Eventually, it was only over his own bed, only himself. Eventually, nothing but his stick, says Rashi. Ashmadoi Mikisoi, that the Ashmadoi or Shadim. Shenemer Zeh Haya Chelki Mikol Moli. This is my portion from all my work. Rav Shulchan Omer Makal is referring to his stick. The Chad Omer Goindoi. This is referring to his cloak. Rashi says Talisai. Hadar alo hadar. The question is, did Shlomo get back his malchus? Rabbi Shmuel Chada Eimer Hadar v'Chadar Melo Hadar Madi Eimer Lo Hadar never returned Melch v'Hedjit. He was a Melch and he became a Hedjit. Madi Eimer Hadar Melech v'Hedjit u'Melech. He became eventually, again, says Rashi, Melch v'Hedjit v'Shuv lo yichazol malchusai. Okay, so it's a machlokes whether Shlomo Melech at the end went back to his malchus. But it's an interesting, some people say, B'derech Drush, I think it's said through the Chavetz Chaim, that, and this is obviously not in a positive way, but instead of ruling over the whole world, the El Yoinim, then the Tachtainim, and then Yisrael, and Yerushalayim, then you have to just focus on yourself. But once you are able to focus on yourself, then you can be Chayzer and be a Molach over everything else. So if you want to be an influence on so much, you can say, at least let me try and influence myself. And by influencing yourself, hopefully you'll be able to mashpia or on the ganze Welt. Okay. Weiter. Paratz asasol get lo derech. This will not be. There should never ask a question on the last few lines of the 30 blot, but we have a Mishnah coming up, so we're going to see it all the way to the Mishnah. Tanobanon. Aitzrais malachim lamelch. So, when it comes to Aitzros malachim lamelch, the storage houses, he can conquer from another king. The sharbiza shabayzin. However, anything else that he plunders, mechsel melch, mechsel am, that doesn't just go all to the king, but rather it's split half and half. Some say it was Rav Acha Bishlam, that goes all to the king, or Chadamilsa. Why? The king wins the battle, he gets everything. Why would he not get everything there as well? Dechsiv, as it says in the Pasuk, as we continue Daf Chaf Aleph Amud Aleph, it says in Divrei Yomim, V'yimshechu Hashem l'nagid, that he anointed Hashem the nagid, which is a king, l'tzadaik, which is a kohen gadol. Makash nagid l'tzadaik. Mat tzadaik, just like tzadaik, who is the kohen gadol, mechsa loy mechsa lachav, he gets half. We'll see how do we know that by kohen gadol he gets half of what and everything. What does that mean? Avnag mechsa loy mechsa lachav. So too when it comes to the king, he only gets half. The tzadaik gufe menolan. How do we know that the kohen gadol only gets half? So Desanya Rabbi Omer b'Haisel Aron Levanav Mechsel Aron Mechsel Levanav. So says Rashi, this is referring to Lechem Hapanim. When it comes to the Lechem Hapanim, the 12 showbreads on the Shulchan in the Kodesh, so it's split. 6 is going to the Kohen Gadol, and the other 6 goes to the rest of the people who are guards or the Beis Av or the that particular one of the 24 groups on this weekly rotation. But we see that the Kohen only gets half. So too, the Kohen, just like the Kohen Gadol only gets half, so too the Melech gets half. Okay, we'll stop with the Rabbi. We're going to stop there, obviously. Well, let's see Rabbi Giver. Okay, so Mahaisa Machlekes Ben. Okay, we saw that. Many students could share one talis. Okay. Lama Nenish Avner. He should have protested Shaul but didn't. And I didn't write by Noif. He prolonged the opportunity to have David the Melech for 2.5 years. So one is a bed of leather straps. Okay, tzela. Or if it's Aronakliti Hamita, I'm not sure if that's what we're looking for. I think it could be also a bed which is Miyuchid Lekalim. Okay, I think that's what it's referring to. Mita Miyuchid Lekalim. Let's just write that down, and I'll write 2025 next to it. Be'ez dinim shel chaluka oimrim she'echa noitel mechsa v'shar hanoshim cholkim b'shar. So Aaron had Kohen Gadol by, you should add by the Lechem Hapanim, and also Melech b'Milchama when it comes to Sharbiza. Adkan.